Hello and welcome back. Today I'll be covering SNES bowling games, which includes Brunswick World Tournament of Champions. All these bowling balls in the background are giving me anxiety. Also, Super Bowling! And that's it. Apparently these are the only bowling games in town for the Super Nintendo, or at least the only two that I could find. Anyway, Super Bowling was published in the US back in '92 by American Technos. A number of years later, there was another Super Bowling, but for the Nintendo 64. Both games were from the same developer and publisher. My only gripe with the title is that there are literally dozens of SNES games at this time whose titles begin with the word Super, especially sports games. But this is the only bowling game with that word, so it's fine. The game itself is relatively straightforward. There's only 3 modes to choose from. You've got Turkey Bowl, which is just, fucking bowling. There's Golf Mode, which I'll get into a bit later, and Practice Mode. Practice Mode is rather cool if you, really want to practice the game. In this mode, you can actually set exactly which pin configuration you want to practice. That's kind of neat. Turkey Bowl mode is just you bowling a 10-frame game. That's it. It's just bowling. It's just get to it. Golf mode, however, is very unique, and I found it to be the most intriguing mode. The game basically throws challenges at you, kind of a random sort of assortment of pins, and there's a set number of balls, or a par, where it's acceptable to knock down all the pins. If you knock them all down on your first ball, it's a hole-in-one, like in, fucking golf. If you knock it down and more, you can get a bogey. You understand. Anyway, once I got a hold of the mechanics, this is the mode that was the most fun for me. It would probably also be the most fun with a group of competitive friends who are decent at the game. If you have friends that want to play a bowling game from 1992 in golf mode. The bowling itself is pretty straightforward. You hold left or right on the D-pad to move your character around, and then you use the L and R buttons to kind of aim a general direction. Then you hit A or B. The X and Y buttons aren't used at all as far as I'm aware. Once you've hit A or B, 2 horizontal meters will appear above your character's head. One controls the spin on the ball, left or right, and one controls the power. They move pretty quickly, but for the spin meter, you can take your time. Once you've got that locked in, your character starts moving toward the lane, so you have a pretty limited amount of time to set your power level. And that's it. You're bowling. Congratulations. Speaking of the characters, they look pretty generic to me, but I guess they don't look terrible. I couldn't find a scan of the manual, so I don't really have any details or background on them if there is. From my experience with the game, the guys seem to have less spin than the women, but also the lighter balls seem to increase the spin potential too. Once you've played the Turkey Bowl and golf mode a few times though, the novelty starts to wear off. There's not much more the game offers you. The game looks pretty decent, it's vibrant, it's eye-catching. The music isn't too bad either, it's kind of your standard assortment of Super Nintendo samples. It's simple, but reasonably competent. It's a bowling game. Doesn't shatter the world. My rating? Play it with like-minded friends for an evening. It might be more fun as a drinking game now that I think about it. The other game is Brunswick World Tournament of Champions. It came out late in the SNES lifecycle, in '97, published by THQ. This one clearly aims to be a more realistic simulation of the sport, and I use the word sport loosely, having spent my middle school years in a bowling league. The game goes a step further though, and has the names and likenesses of a variety of Brunswick-endorsed professional bowlers. I didn't actually realize it until I went into the roster, saw the photos, and started Googling these guys. They're the real deal, but you can't play as them. So if you idolize one of these guys at the time, all you can do is try to compete with them. You can't play as your favorite Brunswick endorsed professional bowler, for whatever that's worth. I was pretty surprised to find that this SNES game from '97 still relied on a password system, but I guess later era SNES games like Mega Man X3 also used a password system. So anyway, just keep a pen and paper handy if you really want to track your progress. Here you can name your character, customize the back of his shirt, pants, and shoes. There's also a large number of actual Brunswick balls containing mushrooms from which to choose. Pretty detailed stats to boot. Like in Super Bowling, I found a little bit lighter balls best for getting some good reliable spin. Practice mode is a good place to start. There's a variety of different lane types, but I just kind of stuck to the basics. The learning curve is not unreasonable, but don't really expect to roll a strike your first ball. You'll make steady progress. Similar to Super Bowling, the D-pad moves your character, sometimes agonizingly slow, while the L and R buttons shift your aim down the lane. The meters here are reversed and circular though. I found best luck trying not to go all out on power, but to use the right ball, standing in the right place, aiming the right way, and using the right amount of spin. It sounds complicated, but you'll pick it up. Tournament mode pits you against a shitload of other bowlers. I have no idea if all of them are real pros or not, but there is a lot of names. You play and play and play, and it feels never-ending. After about 7 games, I had made little progress up the list, and it felt so drawn out that I ended up giving up. League mode was a little bit more interesting, at least. You pick a few pros and you go up against them in kind of a round-robin series of head-to-head matchups, which then kind of get tallied up at the end. I tried to pick the pros with the lower averages because they all set a pretty high bar. It still seemed drawn out, and there seemed like a lot of bowling you had to do, but at least held my interest a bit longer. Visually, the character model is rather simple and kind of undetailed, but the animation is rather fluid and nice. The menus are a bit of a mess, but oh well. It's pretty typical mid to late 90s visuals. The music is really bland, though you can turn it off. I recommend turning it off and playing your own jams. In the end, you have 2 somewhat different bowling games, a more fast-paced, easier-to-learn game, and a deeper, more complex experience. Deciding which one is best kind of depends on whether you're looking for instant gratification or something you can really sink your teeth into. Do you want a Starbucks latte? Or a freshly ground, properly extracted espresso? There's no wrong answer. But the right answer is that Brunswick World Tournament of Champions is the better, more rewarding game in the long run with its deeper mechanics. Is it perfect? No. The presentation is lacking, but it's still a deep and reasonably authentic bowling simulation. My rating? 5 Walter Ray William Jr.'s fist pumping. Thanks again for watching. Feel free to like and subscribe if you are reasonably entertained by what we do here. This is so long again for Ball Champions Pro-Am Drop Shot Sports Video Games. We'll see you next time.